Hi, Chris. How you doing?
Hello.
Hey,
Good,
morning.
good.
How's things? Hi, Chloe. How's things? You all right?
Yeah, good, thanks. How are you?
Good, good. Yeah, long week so far. Long week.
That's almost over.
I know. I'm kind of looking forward to getting out of January, to be honest. It's starting to grind on me a little bit. But no, apart from that, all good. All good. Looking forward to the weekend.
Nice. Perfect.
Are you guys been quite busy this week?
Yeah,
Always.
pretty busy. I've mostly been busy working on this, to be honest. I left it
Right.
the last minute. So, yeah.
No
That's been
worries.
the main focus this week. So, yeah, not too busy other than that.
That's all right, though. Good to see you're taking it seriously, though.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Cool. Yeah, we'll just give it 5 minutes to let people in, and then we'll get cracking from there. I'm doing the admitting as well from the waiting room, so I'm not a good multitasker. So if I lose focus, just give me a nudge.
Hey, Aaron.
Hi, Paolo.
John.
Rob, how you doing?
Yeah, all right. Right.
Long time no speak.
Yeah.
You and the family keeping well?
Yeah. Good Christmas. How about you?
Distant memory there, isn't it? I'm all for the mini eggs now.
Oh yeah. I think, to be fair, we stock up on Easter eggs and kind of just run them through the year. I'm pretty sure we still have some downstairs.
I've still got some cream eggs left over from last year. Actually, I noticed in the cupboard. I don't know how quickly these things go out of date, but
Cream eggs aren't so nice after a few months, I think.
no, I don't think so.
Yeah,
No.
I think what will be telling is the color of the chocolate shell. If that started going a bit white, then it's
exactly best invest in a new box, I think.
Yeah, a box of them.
Well, you always got to get them in 6, John. Like real eggs.
I thought you meant like a proper shop, like 48 or something.
No, I'm not that keen. It's more just a matter of habit, I think, for myself.
Haven't bought one yet. I'm sure they're probably about the size of a mini egg. No.
Yeah, I won't be the size of your head anymore, that's for sure.
No, that's like Curly Whirlies. I remember those used to be like the size of my forearm.
Monster Munch as well. I mean,
yeah, they were proper paws, weren't they?
Indeed.
Or do you think it was just the fact that we were a bit smaller?
Our hands were small. It may well be that as well, but we do need something to moan about.
Man, exactly. How you doing, Chloe?
Yeah, good, thanks. Good.
Right.
How are you?
Not too bad. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Envious of the greenery behind you. Was that a background or was it just your actual back wall?
Yeah, it's real, but the plants aren't all real. Some of them are fake.
Oh,
you can try and work out which ones are real and not real.
In my house, the real ones are the ones with the really big brown bits.
Yeah.
But outside, yours all look fine. Yours all look fake.
Yeah, I've got a selection of cactus on my desk. Minimal effort to look after.
Indeed. Right, we'll give a couple of minutes and we'll get started. There's a few people still joining. Can you see my screen?
Depends what's on it.
You should be able to see it. Let's see how to design anything. Chloe Sanderson.
Yeah, that's the one.
Good. So we're off to a good start then. January's not been a complete write-off. Lovely. Right. I think that's 28 in just now. We've got, I don't know if you signed up. We'll just get going though. I think seeing it's lunchtime. So yeah, I think firstly, obviously, welcome everyone, and happy New Year if we're still saying that. Hope everyone had a good festive period, and you're all well moving into 2022. So yeah, obviously today, as you can see, we have Chloe with us. So Chloe is, and hopefully I get this right, you're currently senior product designer at UserTesting, Chloe, yeah?
Yes, that's correct.
You are,
Sorry,
good.
couldn't find
Yeah.
the mute button. Yep.
No worries, I'm always just conscious of getting people's job title right. Some people, yeah, can take that up if you don't. So yeah, delighted to have Chloe here today. I think a few on the call will know Chloe from previous, certainly. But obviously, before we get started, just a few words about myself around the group for those that are new to us. So obviously, we, the group is We Are Tech, quite simply. It's a fairly certain kind of easy premise that we operate under. We based out of the northeast, out of Sunderland, hence the name. But we're an online meetup, and we're really keen to be accessible to everyone, I suppose, regardless of their location. In terms of the way we want to run the group, we're always looking for input from our members. I think we just hit the 300 mark yesterday, in fact, which is good. Been going about 6 months, so we're just keen to, I suppose, get your input as to what you'd like to hear about. If you want to speak, do get in touch. We're open in terms of the type of tech we can cover, so we really want to be, I suppose, remain as accessible as we can for everyone at all levels of your journey as well, I would say. So before we get cracking, I'd just like to mention the event will be recorded and put up on our YouTube channel. I'll provide the link afterwards. So if you don't want to be on camera, do make sure and turn your camera off. In terms of our agenda, very simple. We've almost covered the first 5, which is good. I'll shortly pass over to Chloe, as I said. We'll talk for about 30-35 minutes. We'll have some Q&A after that. What I would say is we'll leave questions till the end. But if you do think of anything, do make sure you can add that as we go in the comments, and we'll run through that. And then, of course, I'll give you a quick close afterwards and share with you our next event next month. So I think, without further ado, I will pass over to Chloe. Let me just share my screen, Chloe, so you can get your slides up. Sorry, I'm admitting people as we go as well.
Multitasking, nice.
Well, as I said, it's not my my strong point. Hold on. Right. There we go. Right. Cool.
Excellent.
And we're in. So yeah, over to you, Chloe.
Perfect. Thanks very much, Martin, for the introduction, and thanks everyone else for coming. I hope this is entertaining and informative for you, and a good use of your lunch hour as well. Before I actually jump into my presentation, I wanted to start with like a quick survey of like who's here, just to get to know like what kinds of roles and job titles we have with us today. So if you can, just like write your job title in the chat, and it'll just help to get to know like who's in the audience. Cool, so we've got a Salesforce developer, nice, excellent, Java developer, software developer, QE, product designer, software developer, awesome, technical recruiter, engineer, amazing. This is great. This is a nice mixture of people, and that's perfect because that's the kind of audience I was looking for. So perfect. That's really great. Thanks everyone for letting me know a little bit about you. So I'll let you know a little bit about me to start with. So I'm Chloe. I've been a UX or product designer for 5 years now. Currently senior product designer at UserTesting. So if you haven't heard of UserTesting, it's a platform that allows anyone to sign up and get paid to give their feedback to companies by answering questions and testing websites, apps, prototypes, experiences, anything you can think of, really. So it's a really awesome platform. If you haven't heard of it, I recommend checking it out, either being one of our contributors or even using it as a customer as well. So my kind of favorite part of my job, or one of my favorite parts of my job, is applying design thinking to non-traditional design problems. And that's what I wanted to talk about today with everyone. So firstly, we can start off with what is design. So a very quick Google search brings up this as one of the definitions of design. It's very much focused on how something looks and works, and kind of designing that. And that's not wrong. Like in my day-to-day job as a product designer, that's a lot of what I do, is thinking about how an application is going to look and function to best meet the needs of a user. But there's also a second, broader definition that comes up underneath this, and that says that design is the act of doing or planning something with a specific purpose in mind. And if you take that definition to its kind of very extreme or literal sense, almost anything that we do intentionally, you could class that as design. So that's from maybe like the first tools that we created as humans. We made them specifically to fit the shape of our hands, to cut things. We made them from the right kind of material that you could carve them out of harder stone. And then all the way through to like everyday activities that we do right now, like writing an email, planning your day, or having a meeting with someone. These are all things that we do with a specific purpose in mind. So you could class them as design. And that means that everyone's got the chance to be a designer in their everyday lives. But if we look back at these two definitions just for a second, one thing that excites me really as a designer is that the same principles and techniques that I've learned to do my job designing digital products and thinking about the look and the functions of that, I can use those to kind of to design just about anything, to think about anything that I'm trying to do with a specific purpose, and use the same kinds of techniques. And that sometimes it feels like having sort of superpowers that you can apply to any kind of problem. So in this talk, rather than keep those superpowers to myself, I wanted to sort of introduce you to all of the different things that can be designed, and then share with you the 3 design superpowers that you can use in your everyday life to solve problems more effectively. So I said 3 superpowers. There's actually a lot to choose from. I had to kind of like narrow it down. These are the top 3 that I found most helpful, kind of solving problems, not just in my sort of work that I do, but just in sort of everyday life or other sorts of problems outside of that. So the first one is asking why. And I really think why is like one of the most important questions that you can ask. It sounds like really simple, but I've been parts of lots of projects and meetings and teams where everyone had a slightly different answer to why we were doing something, and slightly different goals, or they just hadn't thought about it at all. So I think a good tip, if you want to sound like the smartest person in the meeting, is just to ask why. And a lot of the time that can you can have really great outcomes just from asking that question. So yeah, if everyone in the team is working towards different goals, there's going to be more conflict, and you can't be as effective as a team at meeting those goals if they're different. And then as an individual as well, if you don't know what you're working towards, you can't make the right kinds of choices to be successful. You can't be successful if you don't know what success is, what you're actually aiming towards. So the best designers I've worked with and that I've learned the most from are those that ask why all the time. As I said earlier, like asking why at the right time, it can completely change the direction of a project or a meeting. It can save us from spending time on something that wasn't worthwhile in the first place, and it helps to make things more successful overall. Once you start doing it, you'll probably see that you find more and more opportunities to ask why in your day-to-day life. But just like 4-year-olds and Backstreet Boys, it's important to keep asking why, not just accept the first answer that you get. So some of you might have heard of the 5 whys technique, and that's originally created to find root causes, but it works just as well for finding kind of the root goals as well. So often the first answer that you get is just a symptom of a deeper sort of underlying motivation. And if you keep asking why, eventually you get to the root goal that's underlying that. So yeah, and that helps us kind of figure out what's really important to us and what we're actually trying to work towards. So an example of where I used this recently, I was on a team that was in charge of planning an event. So it was 3 days of accessibility focused learning events for our product design and engineering teams. And when we started off with the planning, we had a little bit of a problem because we had so many ideas of what we could do. And it was really difficult to try and figure out actually like how to organize these and prioritize them. So one thing that we did, we took a step back and we defined the outcomes that we were actually hoping to achieve from these events. We looked at the reason like why we were doing this in the first place, and what we wanted to get out of it. So that's our kind of 3 goals there. And then from there, we looked back at all of the ideas that we had, and we identified which ones were actually going to help us meet those outcomes. And that helped us prioritize, get rid of the ones that weren't helping towards those outcomes at all. And it helped us organize the ideas and get a kind of like structure around the events. And ultimately, it helped us make an event that actually met those goals that we set out to achieve. So we managed to achieve the goals of the event, and it made the planning of the event much smoother as well. So the second superpower I want to talk about is solving with empathy. So anything that you are designing that involves other people requires empathy. So putting yourself in someone else's shoes. And product designers and UX designers, we focus on the users of the product or service that we're designing. We kind of spend time speaking to them, understanding them deeply, understanding how they see their world, and really getting to know what their needs are. So we use tools like empathy maps to help us make sure that we understand people from all different kinds of angles. So when we understand people deeply in this way, it helps us to come up with the best solution to the right problem. And the right problem is the one that's most impactful for them. But solving other kinds of problems is no different. So even outside of UX and product design work, I always try to ask myself, who are the users in this situation. And I use this a lot in just general day-to-day life. But one of the places I find it most effective is building working relationships with developers. So if any of you are, there's quite a few developers here, if you've worked with designers before, you might have found that the relationship is a place where there can be a lot of tension and misunderstanding. So some of these things you might have seen go wrong in the past. These are some things that I've seen in the past. So developers being frustrated that the design is unrealistic. Maybe developers not being able to find the most up-to-date designs or not knowing the status of the work. And then as designers, something that often frustrates us is if the thing that's built isn't something that we had imagined in the original design. Reading the chat there. So yeah, all of these things, all of these problems are things that can be solved by having a little bit more empathy for the rest of the team and treating the people that you work with the same kind of respect that that we as designers try and treat our users with. So this doesn't require like special research like you would do in normal sort of UX design. It just requires paying a bit more attention, being curious and seeking to understand people as people. And from this, you can build a fairly decent picture of the different things that might influence someone, the different wants and needs that they have. I also take time just to speak to others on my team and find out more about their workflows, their methodologies, seek feedback from them on like what could make our working relationship better. I've also found that team retrospectives are a really great place to do this kind of thing as well. So some of the solutions to the problems I mentioned earlier that I found by just having a little bit more empathy for the developers I work with, like speaking their language, not using design terms all the time, asking for input and ideas early in the process and being open to making trade-offs, giving a demo of how to find designs and where they're organized and what the status of different things are. And clearly explaining the rationale behind design choices. So these seem like fairly straightforward things, but yeah, I think you'd be surprised the amount of times that this doesn't happen as well. And the result is a happier team and overall a better output from the team. When designers and developers are learning to work together more effectively, they can come up with much better solutions than they would come up with if they were on their own. And the last superpower I want to talk about is reflecting and adapting. So no matter how well researched and thought out your solution is, you're unlikely to get it right the first time. Even the best designers don't design the right thing the first time. So it's important to regularly reflect on your solution, whether that's a process, a piece of code, a meeting, what you did this week, and think about how it could be better. And then you can use those reflections in the next iteration and gradually get better and better each time. So some of the things that designers do to reflect and adapt, so getting feedback from other designers, teammates and stakeholders, testing with real users and getting feedback from them, and also monitoring how our solution is actually being used in production as well. As we're kind of doing this process, we go from like a very low fidelity concept or idea and then build up on more details as we get more feedback along the way. And that helps not spend too long going down the wrong path and getting too caught up in a single solution. And it means we can change direction quickly when we get feedback. Another reason why it's important to set your goals at the beginning is so that you can measure against those goals at each iteration. So you can think about how well each iteration is meeting those goals that you set out to achieve. So an example of where I've seen this used, sorry for the typo there. This is actually not myself that did this, but this was a lead engineer at the company I was working for, and he was interested in maximizing the developer effectiveness at the company by really focusing in on developer experience and understanding it. So I really liked the process that he went through. I thought it was a great example. Firstly, he set out by defining like what a developer in a high effective environment would achieve. What does success look like? What is it that we're actually aiming towards? Next, he ran a survey to find out basically how far away from that perfect state we are. And you can see from the results that it wasn't bad, but there was still room for improvement. So from the survey, he identified several themes for improvement and looked at which were the most important. And then after actually implementing those themes, he kept running the same survey every month and was able to measure over time how well the experience was improving. So instead of just a developer experience that gets better once, he had an experience that kept getting better over time. And so this led to compounding increases in effectiveness instead of just a single one-off improvement. So the last example that I just want to finish on is the process I used in designing this talk. So firstly, asking why. And actually, admittedly, I didn't do this very well at the start. So the kind of timeline of writing this talk was I met with John and Martin a few months ago. We talked about like the goals and the audience. I felt like I'd done a pretty good job of like researching and thinking about the background. So I came up with this idea for the topic of the talk. And again, felt pretty good about it. It was something I'd been thinking about for a while. After that, I basically did nothing for 3 months. Kind of just didn't have the motivation. Couldn't really get started. I had a bunch of ideas again, but I just didn't really know how to break them down and organize them and get them into a format that I could deliver. So yeah, this led to about 2 weeks ago panicking because I realized I didn't have too much time. And yeah, again, just didn't really know how to get started. And so the one thing that really helped me, I kind of just went back and really started to think about why I was doing this, like what were my personal goals I was hoping to get out of it, what did I want the audience to get out of it, yeah, what was the reason I was doing this in the first place. And thinking about those things, it really helped to unblock me. It gave me motivation that I needed just to get started, but it also helped me really focus on like what I was trying to achieve from it and how I can organize the content around that. So while I was writing this talk, I kept sort of looking back on the goals, and that really helped me to prioritize which parts made it into the talk and what parts were just filler. So secondly, I try to use empathy as well when designing a talk. So I try to spend some time sort of understanding the audience and how to tailor the talk to them. This was kind of challenging because speaking to John and Martin at the start, the answer to like who is the audience was kind of it just depends on what the topic of the talk is, and we just kind of see who shows up. So I didn't have a definite sort of audience in mind. So the sort of brief was write a talk about design that's for designers and non-designers that would interest both sets of people, which is kind of challenging. I think that sometimes, especially in designing, like actually having a tighter and better defined brief can be a lot easier than having too much freedom. So So as well as actually thinking about who the audience are, also just thinking about like the general experience of watching the talk and sort of generic rules around human perception and attention that hopefully help make the talk more engaging. So when I do a talk, I try to stay to like 1 point per slide so people can focus on the thing I'm talking about. Try to provide some kind of like visual structure so people know where they are in the talk. They don't get lost along the way. And not staying on the same slide for too long, because I know we all have very short attention spans these days with things like TikTok. So yeah, these are some of the things I try to do. And these are also just principles that I think I've picked up from like interface design and the same sort of principles that apply there. And then lastly, reflecting and adapting. So when I was writing the talk, I went through multiple rounds of feedback. Started off with just like a very broad outline and some ideas and getting feedback on that. Then went to just like very, very rough slides just to get feedback on the kind of the structure and the content. And then lastly, getting feedback on the kind of closer to the finished presentation. And definitely incorporated a lot of that feedback along the way. So some of the examples of suggestions I got were having a slide at the start talking about the goals of the talk, which I added. Also having an example of using the 5 whys and how that can be used. And then also someone suggested that I should show how the feedback was added into the talk as well, which you can see I thought was a really great idea. So I've done that. But I also want to treat this as just another sort of iteration on this talk and a work in progress. So I'm really interested in how it could get better after this as well. So I have put together a survey, which I'm going to post into the chat. If people have 5 minutes at the end just to take that survey and let me know how you found the talk, then that will be really helpful just to help me get better as well. So just to summarize, sum up how to design anything, I think the overall thing that is important is just to start looking for opportunities, opportunities in your work or your outside of work life. Once you start looking for things that you can be more sort of intentional about, you'll find lots of opportunities to apply this kind of thinking. So that could be something like asking why you're having this meeting. If you're in a meeting where you're not really sure on what the goals of the meeting are, you can ask why we're having the meeting, like if no one's defined what you're actually hoping to get out of it. And that can make the meeting much, much more productive. So also solving with empathy. So I know we've got a lot of engineers here and developers. So maybe next time you're doing a code review or a pull request and you're like writing about the code, just thinking a little bit more about who's on the other end of that communication and like what you're trying to communicate to those people, what information they need and what context they're in. And lastly, reflecting and adapting. So I think everyone has opportunity to just keep getting better in their day-to-day life, keep reflecting on what you're doing and how you can get better every time. So yeah, that's all I wanted to talk about. I have time for questions, but also I also wanted to just open it up to more a discussion as well. So I'm really interested in hearing from people like what opportunities you might see in your own work or your general life to use these types of things. And also if you have some examples from your job of like superpowers that you found yourself using outside of that, I'd be really interested in hearing those as well. Thanks, everyone.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Chloe. I think firstly, a lot of really good takeaways. I think regardless of what you do day to day there, really, really interesting. So thanks for that. I suppose the first thing that sprang to mind was for myself was the issue of feedback. Now, obviously, when you kind of planned out your talk and you were looking for feedback, did you have a specific group in mind? I think you kind of touched on, obviously, this is a bit of a mixed bag in terms of backgrounds, but did you have a specific type of person you would rather have feedback from, or were you kind of happy to hear it from all angles, as it were?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, definitely all angles. I think maybe one thing I should have put in that the survey that I posted is actually maybe asking about job role, and then that might help contextualize the different feedback that I get. Maybe get very different feedback from developers that I might get from designers. So yeah, that's a really good point. But no, definitely open to just feedback from anybody. Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose that's a good point, because people will always see things different, and I suppose pick up on different things depending where they're coming from. But yeah, certainly I'll post that in the group as well afterwards, so you'll have access to the link there as well when we excuse me, when we finish up. Yeah, anything from anyone else just now?
Hey, Chloe. Sorry, I haven't spoken for a bit. Hey, Chloe. Just a question for me, I suppose, on the sort of point one, the 5 whys thing. I guess, if someone's given you often you get asked to design something, whether it's a feature or a thing or something, and they'll give you something kind of in the middle, like, we want a feature to do this, and it's I totally get why it's important to kind of go back and ask them why. Do you find that sometimes annoys people though? Because like, well, don't worry about why, I just want this thing, please. Yeah,
absolutely, all the time.
Do you have any strategies for sort of getting beyond that?
So, well, that's a great question. I think I haven't thought of any particular strategies for that, but I feel like often when that question is asked and people find that maybe they haven't thought about the background as much as they should have, it kind of sells itself, right? Just from getting that outcome out of it, people sort of realize that they have to go back and answer these questions better. And if they have thought about it, then that's great. Like, if they have a good answer for why we're doing this, then that's even better. And yeah, maybe it's annoying to keep asking, but yeah, it's definitely useful, I think, and worthwhile.
Yeah, I'm just going to jump in here. And one of the tricks I use, instead of keep asking why, is saying something else like, I don't understand, which basically kind of leads into why. So there is different routes to get there, but you just got to be a bit clever about it. That's just one of the tricks that I use. I just say, sorry, I don't understand. And then it kind of forces them to explain and go into the background. And then it's one way to kind of brute force it.
I think that strategy will appeal to someone's better nature. It's like asking for help. I don't understand. Your first reaction will surely be, well, I'll help you understand then. It's almost like a kind of cry for help. So I could see that being quite effective, to be honest.
Absolutely, yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, just changing up the way that you're saying it, and yeah, I think what you said, Martin, that's an example of, I think, having a little bit of empathy for someone and understanding maybe what would motivate them more to answer you. So yeah, I think that's a good point.
I think one thing I've witnessed when Chloe, I work with Chloe on her team, so when she is asking those questions or asking the why, she'll always try and give that context behind it. So if we're working on a specific user flow or looking at a specific user story or a feature, to be able to have that why behind it and that level of understanding really benefits the team, because then we've got a clear vision and a clear goal about how we're meeting a specific need, if that's for our customers, if that's internally, what the requirement around that is, and then what sort of time we've got to dedicate to it. So I totally agree, asking why, very annoying. But asking for help, I think, is really important, and gaining that context so that everyone's clear about what they're doing. And I think that's one of the biggest things, like as a QE, I struggle with by the time something comes through to me to test. If there's been confusion or the requirements haven't been clear and the context isn't there, then the quality isn't there either. And it does make it a lot harder to test. And then I end up asking all the whys again. So better doing it earlier.
I was just going to say, testers are great. Yeah, great partners in asking why.
Yeah, so I've got another question actually. So which is coming from a designer to a developer. Kind of want to flip it around a bit and go from a developer to a designer. So let's just say you've got this really nice design and you expect it to work a certain way. How do you feel when a developer goes, okay, we can't do it in this design, but at least we give an alternative? Is that any better than just saying, oh no, we can't do this?
Yeah, definitely. I think that like sometimes I've found that like that can be some of the best solutions can be come up with that way when, and again, it's just having that background of like, why are we doing this? What is the need that we're trying to meet? And then what's the easiest way for us to meet that need, right? So the original idea that the designers come up with might not be it might meet the need, but it might not do it in the most sort of easy to deliver way. If the developer has an idea of how they can meet the same need, but in a much easier way that can get released faster, then I think that's even better. So yeah, I definitely, I really enjoy those conversations. And yeah, there could be a bit of like give and take, and sometimes there is, sometimes you don't come up with like the perfect thing that everyone's happy with, but I think like compromise on teams and things like that is really important.
Yeah, and I think that's another one of the like superpowers in that sense. Like when you're thinking about empathy, it's about how you collaborate with each other and get to an end solution that you're all happy with from a customer, a design standpoint, a technical standpoint, taking into account what your delivery is like, and then being able to have like those commitments between you and that agreement between you just makes you work better as a team, I think, like because you're able to then know what's happening, and there are less single points of failure then as well, because everyone's had that discussion and they understand what the details are behind it. And if they don't, keep asking why and keep going back and you know, reflecting on what you are doing and making sure that's heading towards the right goal, and that you're actually going to achieve that. I think that's really important. That's why I really like the point of you doing that as the last step, because I think we don't take enough time to do that, particularly when things are delivered. Like we try to implement it in our team so that we always have a retro after we deliver a feature, so that we can look at how we run that project and what we can do better. You know, where were our blockers? Where did we fall down? Was there more conversations that were needed between design and dev, or design and QE, or did we miss the point from a product perspective? So yeah, really important to do that as well, I think.
I'd be interested to know, actually, you mentioned obviously yourself, Natalie, obviously work with Chloe, just obviously you'll have a retro at the end of the project. Are these things that you'll have kind of midpoint, or are you scheduling things throughout the process to re-ask the whys, and I suppose make sure everyone's on the same page and that things are kind of going in the right direction? Is that something that you do at all?
Yeah, we have a sprint retro every 2 weeks to mark where we're going on, and then just depending on how the sprint layout is, we'll do that when it's needed. So we have them regularly as part of the team to look at our processes and things like that, and then at the end of a project we'll go back and look at how well we've done against like what KPIs we wanted to put in there, how well we delivered that, and then to also get feedback on what we've delivered as well from our customers, and how well that's gone in and been received, so that we know, is there a future iteration here, is there more work that we need to do? So I think it's really important to have that in there, and like you say, to go back and ask, you know, did we meet the requirement? Did it actually? And is it useful for people? So
no, I can imagine certainly when you're busy and you can maybe lose focus quite easily, and I suppose lose track of the why, as it were.
Oh,
So, yeah.
definitely. Especially when you've been working on a project for like 2-3 months and then but you're just so sick of looking at it. You're like, I don't want to talk about this anymore.
Yeah.
But actually having that bit of time to reflect together. And also I think for QE as well, look at it from that sort of lens. There's normally other things that come out of it, right? Sometimes you introduce a bit of tech debt. Sometimes you are introducing smaller bugs and things like that. So having a kind of wrap up at the end of it and knowing what that clear endpoint was. So yeah, you met your goal, but you've introduced XYZ, or, you know, we need to iterate on this. It just helps product as well. And, you know, us understand what that roadmap needs to be for those features.
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point about coming back and asking why along the way as well. Like, it's not just something that you do at the start. Definitely scheduling points in just to reflect on that and to say, like, are we still solving the same problem, or does it make sense to like shift to a different goal here? Because yeah, I think goals are not like static, they can change over time. So yeah, revisiting it makes a lot of sense.
Definitely. Chloe also does design review walkthroughs for us as well, which I super appreciate, because that means all the team gets together, we go through what she's put in, and she'll show us the research she's done from like using our platform and seeing what our customers like in terms of the different options for designs and layouts and user experience in that sense. And then she'll use all of that data to inform the design that we're going to evaluate and how we're going to put that solution in. So those are super beneficial to do regularly as well, especially as things being in an agile methodology, adapt and change quite quickly, to be able to iterate that and see what the latest is in terms of the design and what you're doing for your use cases and things. That I would highly recommend that as a designer if you're not doing that already, because it just gives you that time to all come together and understand that context and figure out the solution together.
There's a question in the chat just asking like what books I would recommend to someone that's new to design. Definitely my number one recommendation is Design of Everyday Things by Don Norman. It's like such a just important book for design. And I think it kind of builds on a lot of the sort of themes from this talk, I think, but it goes into a lot more detail and a lot more specific, just around how people use things, how their minds work, and how to like design things that are easy to use and understand. So yeah, it's a really, really like well-written book. It's very well, like it's easy to understand as a book as well. Like I think that's one of the things I liked most about it. It's very easy to read, and you really learn a lot from it. So yeah, I'd recommend anyone to read that, even if you're not a designer. I think it could help anyone in their job.
Cool. Any questions for anyone else at the moment? Thanks, Natalie. I think you was that the link to the book there you posted in the chat.
I meant to share the Amazon one, but I've just shared the Google one. So maybe doing the search.
No worries. That's helpful. I will. I'll also post that in the group for after as well, in case anyone misses it. If anyone wants to kind of follow up on that. But yeah, anything from anyone else? Any more questions for Chloe?
I've always wondered, what's your favorite thing about being a designer? Like, why did you get into it?
Oh, I think that's two different questions. Like, I think, so I think I think I kind of answered that at the start, right? I said like, one of my favorite things is doing stuff like this. So like what the talk's about, like I've learned so many skills from being a designer that you don't just apply to like designing an interface, but you apply it to like so many things in your life, and like working with other people. So I think that's my favorite thing now. That is not the reason I got into it, because I didn't know that at the time. I think I got into it just because I sort of enjoyed solving problems, and yeah, it was just the kind of like satisfaction of like solving problems in that way. But yeah.
Thank you.
Good question. Thanks.
A conscious decision, not something you kind of fell into. Such.
No, yeah, probably a bit of both. Yeah.
I was going to say it's not like recruitment, which everyone just falls into. To be honest, that's the only answer to that question. But it sounds like you actually kind of had a look and made a bit more of a conscious decision, certainly than I did.
Yep. But even, you know, things like that, career choices is another thing that you can design and you can think about sort of intentionally. Definitely did that the last time so when I got this current job, I really sat down while I was thinking about getting a job and like thought about the type of job I wanted and what the goals were. So yeah, another example there.
Yeah. You went to Napier, didn't you, Chloe? I think.
Yep, that's right. Yeah.
What was your course called actually? Maybe just for anyone that's looking to, I suppose, move into design or was curious.
Yeah, the course is interactive media design. So it's very broad. It was covers like video development, sound development, interface design, like many things. So it was a nice way of you just get to try out lots of different ways of designing and then find the one that you sort of enjoy the most.
So comes recommended, shall we say? Yeah,
it was a great course. Yeah.
Cool. Perfect. Anything from anyone else before we wrap up? Cool. I will share my screen then.
Go ahead. Thanks, everybody.
All right.
For great questions and discussion.
Yes. So yeah, thanks very much for that, Chloe. Really interesting. I know certainly a few takeaways for myself there. So I may well pick your brains at some point in the future. So if you get an email, do respond. But yeah, as I said at the start, the recording will be on our YouTube channel. I think, yes, it's at We Are Tech, which you can obviously sign up for, and all the previous recordings are there as well as our future talks as well. I suppose just to make you all aware that the next one we've got Derek Graham from Sage, based in the Northeast. He is doing his talk on No Solid Evidence, so exploring the 5 principles to improve your code. I think something that will appeal to a lot of levels of people who are interested in tech, whether you're studying or you're an experienced engineer. I think there'll be a few things for most people to take away from that. So that's on the 9th of February, 6 p.m. for that one. So yeah, hopefully, if you're interested, you can make it along. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it from us. Obviously, if there's anything you'd like to speak on, or if you've got ideas or even ways we can improve the group, anything at all, do get in touch with myself directly. My email address is there, martin.walker@sageza.com. Obviously, thanks to Sageza for supporting the meetup as well. But yeah, once again, the group's for everyone. It's inclusive for everyone. If there's something you would like to hear about, whether you want to present it yourself or you want us to maybe find a speaker on it, we're more than happy to try and accommodate and move forward in that fashion. So yeah, but thanks everyone for joining us again, and we'll hopefully see each other very soon again.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thanks,
See you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.